Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine, and today we're welcomed by Mr. Psycho Boy Fodder. How we doing, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me, dude.
Like I told you off air, extremely excited to have this happen. Extremely excited to dive into your career. It's been short, but it's been eventful, so I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been kind of fast, like everything.
yes,
So,
you've definitely hit the ground running, to say the least. Before we dive into your career, maybe how you got into it, all that fun stuff, would you like to shout out your social medias and upcoming events you got going on, just to let the fans know where they can check you out?
yeah, man, we got pretty much like Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat very much, but Threads, all the things are at LOKEYS 910. And then for matches, interviews, all that sort of thing, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/ Psycho Boy Fodder.
Love it. Easy, simple. And I'm just gonna start off at the beginning. As a wrestling fan, as a wrestler, as a wrestling podcaster, we all gotta be a fan of this. You don't just get into the business not as a fan. So,
Sure.
when did you find professional wrestling, and kind of what about this sport made you fall in love with it?
Well, man, I mean, I've always been a big fan since I was a child. Just growing up, I was totally obsessed with wrestling. I actually went to wrestling school when I was 16. My art teacher in sixth grade was actually an indie wrestler. He ended up doing like some stuff for like TNA and NWA Wildside, and he had actually kind of got me into wrestling school. He told him at the time, he told him I was 18, but I was 16. So once they found out I wasn't 18, they told me I had to take a break and come back when I was 18. I guess they had, all sorts of legal stuff, if I got hurt and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I took kind of a long gap where I really wasn't doing like anything wrestling related. I mean, like I would still watch wrestling, like, WrestleManias and SummerSlam and things like that. And I got into doing bodybuilding, and just one day I was in the gym and I saw like an advertisement for like a pro wrestling school, and I said, you know what, man, if I'm gonna ever try it and just see what happens, I might as well just go try it now. So I ended up signing up, and I think kind of like the overall consensus, like when I signed up for wrestling school, was a lot of the guys were saying, they were like, look, man, like you got the look, you got the body, like all you got to do is kind of learn the in-ring stuff.
Mhm.
And EC3 was a good friend of mine outside of wrestling, just from like bodybuilding and, supplements and things like that. And I ended up, doing a couple of things with EC3, and man, it just kind of just took off from there.
So, just jumping back to your childhood briefly,
Hmm?
who were some of your favorites growing up, or some of your biggest inspirations growing up?
Oh man, I mean, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Mr. Perfect. I mean, like I grew up in the era of wrestling where there was a lots of characters. So you had Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, Virgil, Papa Shango. I mean, like that was, in my opinion, like that's kind of like the best era of wrestling. Um, because you can really tell stories with characters.
Yep.
Now wrestling's sort of kind of morphed into like everybody's sort of like a first name last name guy, and everybody's
Mhm.
just kind of doing, it's just matches. um but like I think like early 90s into like 95, 96, 97, like that was like the best era of pro wrestling in my opinion.
Okay. So growing up, obviously you said you started training at 16. They found
Mhm.
out you wasn't 18, so you get out of it. And then you get into the world of fitness and bodybuilding. How did that start, and kind of what was that progress like for you going into that world?
Well, I mean, like, one thing about like fitness and bodybuilding, and just kind of like setting a goal to like build your physique in a certain way is that takes a lot of discipline. Just dieting, training, sleeping, all of those things um require I'd say like an immense amount of focus too. You have to really be dialed in and focused on you know what you're doing in terms of just like never missing workouts, not missing meals with the diets, and just I'm a big proponent of like everybody should do like one bodybuilding show because it really shows you like how much dedication and discipline you actually have like as a human being. And if you can control what you eat, uh you can really control a lot of other things in your life. You start to realize like, okay man, like I actually have control over lots of things in my life. And just getting involved in bodybuilding and all that, it taught me all that, which then sort of led me into professional wrestling. So once I kind of got into professional wrestling, I think I was a little bit ahead of where a lot of people start, because I had come from a world where you had to be extremely disciplined. So things like going to wrestling school, putting in the time in the ring, and the practices and everything else. I mean, that stuff was just no problem for me, because I felt like I had came from something that was um, I don't want to say harder than professional wrestling, but just as hard as professional wrestling.
What was some of the things, transitioning from bodybuilder in the fitness world and going into pro wrestling? What were some of the things you struggled with in that transition?
I mean, just learning to be loose. Like
Okay.
when you're a bodybuilder, like like everything just you just kind of become like really stiff.
Mhm.
And I think that just comes from like just the repetition of the motions all the time. Like, you're just doing the
Yeah.
same exercises over and over and over, right? And the more the more mass that you put on your body, the less limber you become.
Mhm.
Like I saw an interview where like I don't know if it was like Mustafa Ali or Will Ospreay, maybe both of them, had said this at one point in time, but they were saying that like they couldn't do as it was one of like the top rope maneuvers that they used to
Yeah.
do.
I think I know what you're
That
talking about.
Yeah, like they couldn't do it, or didn't want to keep it in the arsenal because it became much harder as they added more muscle tissue on their body, right? So just things like that, man. And like one thing about like professional wrestling is like wrestling is about uh being extremely loose with your body, man, and being able to give your body, to the person that you're working with. So like if a guy grabs your arm, man, I mean, if your arm is as stiff as a board, man, I mean, he can't really do anything with you or take you anywhere, right? So you definitely have to learn to be very, very loose in professional wrestling.
So, why did you decide to make the transition from bodybuilding to professional wrestling? Was you just done in that world, or did
No, I
you?
wasn't done. I mean, like
Okay.
I still eat like a bodybuilder, man. I still train like a bodybuilder. Um, the transition was more so I I contacted the wrestling school, and originally what I wanted to do was I just wanted to do it like once a week to try to get some agility back for
Mhm.
myself, because I had become very, very stiff as a bodybuilder. Like, dude, like I could not even like bend over and like touch my toes. You know what I mean? It was just how stiff I was. And I was like, man, like I'm 33 years old. Like I really need to try to get like more agile and more limber. And this could be a good way to do that. So when I started doing it, my initial suggestion to the school is I was like, do you have like something like where you offer like one-on-one classes, and they didn't, because and now I know this is like when you're teaching professional wrestling or you're training people for professional wrestling, you have to be able to stand on the outside and look at what they're doing so you could tell them what they're doing wrong, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the one-on-one stuff was kind of out, and the main thing I was really worried about with the one-on-one stuff is just getting in there with somebody who didn't know what they were doing and getting hurt. And then it's like, well, now I can't do bodybuilding or the wrestling, right? So I just wanted to make sure I was being as safe as possible. And then as I started doing it, I'm one of those people that like I can't really do anything at like 60%. I have to do everything at 100%. So once I went down and I did the when EC3 got released from WWE, he had like that vignette where he was fighting in the garage, and they ended up using it like on Impact, and I was the guy fighting him in that vignette, and that was kind of like my first big budget production type thing, where I met like Braun Strowman there and Moose and Spud and lots of people. And that kind of let me know, like, okay, like if I really sink my teeth into this, I can go somewhere with this. So it's like you get your first like little taste of it and you're like, oh, okay, like this is what I can be doing if I apply myself.
So what did that training look like for you being, trained with guys or training with guys that are like on TV like Spud or Moose and guys like that? Like what did walk us through that process?
Well, I mean you get um sped up really quick. So like I wouldn't say that like EC3 was like training me to be a professional wrestler. Um, like I went to a school and I was like predominantly at that school the majority of the time. But when I did start working matches, like through EC3, I met a lot of guys and I was able to work with a lot of guys like early on. Like my first year in the business, like actually working matches, I mean, I was probably working like two TV guys a month. So being able to work with guys who work on television, it's like you can go to wrestling school as much as you want. You can go 6 days a week and take the bumps and run the drills and do all the things, right? But nothing speeds you up quicker than actually doing matches in front of crowds with a guy who's an actual pro. Like for me, I felt like in 2 years I had learned 10 years worth of stuff. And a lot of guys who are like on the indies, they don't really have the opportunity to work with, like television level professionals. So for me to be able to do that, like my first, year and a half in the business where I was just working like two TV guys a month, it just sped me up so fast. And it just made me very good at doing professional wrestling.
So how long did you train before you got to actually make your debut?
I trained, so like I was training during COVID too.
Okay.
So like I started training September 2019. So I was training for like a few months and then COVID hit. And then I was kind of training during COVID because I was working with Lodi from WCW. So
Mhm.
he's got a school about 2 hours from my house. So around that time is when Lodi was training Brock Anderson, Arn's kid. So I would just go down there and it would be like me, Lodi, Arn Anderson, Brock Anderson, Arn's kid, and we would all just go in there and just train. And then maybe about June or July of 2020, the they started kind of to open things up for from COVID or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I worked my first match in front of a crowd in at the end of July 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that with Control Your Narrative or Free the Narrative, or was that something else?
No, that was actually just on like just like a regular indie like in North Carolina.
Okay.
The control your narrative stuff. So like the indie I worked in North Carolina in July 2020. That was right around the same time when we had shot the vignette.
Okay.
When EC3 got released from WWE.
Hmm.
So like that vignette airs on Impact, and then I worked like my first match in front of a crowd like in the same month. And then the Control Your Narrative stuff when we shot the first Free the Narrative one, the one with like Moose and Matt Sydal and Cardona and everybody, that was in January 2021.
Got you. So just going back to your first match on the indie, what did that match look like for you? And looking back, how much have you changed since that first match?
Oh, I mean, I've changed immensely. I mean, it's tenfold from that. I don't think that like when I like actually have that match on film, and when I watch that match back, I don't think that I was bad then. I think
Mhm.
I've just always had like I think I'm one of those guys too where they say it's just like some people just get it
Yeah.
immediately. I think I was just one of those people. Like I just got it immediately. Now I did work with I worked with a guy named D'Lo Jordan who has since passed away. Good guy. Was very good at like leading and things like that, like in the match. So like when I watched the match, I mean, then I was kind of doing like a lot more, I would say, like power focused stuff because of my size. But as you progress and your character progresses and things like that, man, now I do a lot of character based wrestling, which I think fits what both me and my wife do.
Yeah. So, like going in afterwards and starting to film those vignettes for Control Your Narrative,
Mhm.
um, what was like, what did your involvement look like with that? Was you just kind of there listening to the guys putting people in places, or was you like in the trenches really diving into the character aspect of everything that was going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I learned a lot of the character stuff, like you know, working with EC3, right? So like they had their vision of what they wanted, Psycho Boy Fodder to be in the Control Your Narrative, in the Control Your Narrative series, right? So like it's basically just taking like what their vision is and then kind of putting my own little twist on it, and you know, utilizing that character for what they were doing, and they had three different free the narrative series, right? So like the character is really a character who kind of turns into like EC3's henchman, eventually leading to him turning on EC3, right? Which kind of, in the large scheme of things, it's like EC3 gave me a lot of opportunity, helped me get uh kind of get my foothold in professional wrestling, and then it was good enough to where I could really go off and do my own thing.
Yeah. I feel like that's a lot of trust from somebody that's been in this business as long as EC3
Yeah.
into somebody that's coming right out of training. Is that how you felt looking back at it?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, EC3's he's a total pro, man. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about a guy who's wrestled everywhere there is to wrestle, Ring of Honor, TNA World Champion, WWE, NXT. I mean, EC3's been everywhere. So, somebody like me coming into the business, um, and being lent a helping hand is like that's a big deal, man, because like
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I don't know where my wrestling career would be at without EC3. And that's one of those things where I don't even think about it because like it happened and we're here, right? But having somebody like EC3 who had been working on television, for 15 years, being able to listen to him and have him like watch my work and say like, hey, like, right here in this spot, you can do XYZ, that just all of that stuff just helps build you, like I worked like at NWA, like Dr. Tom Pritchard was an agent for a lot of my matches at NWA, and one thing I enjoyed like working with him was just he would always say like, listen, wrestling is just different flavors of ice cream. This is just my flavor of ice cream that I'm offering you right now, right? He was like, but you don't have to take my flavor of ice cream, but this is just mine, right? So take this and do what you will with it and apply it in whatever way you can. And if you think somebody else's flavor of ice cream is better, then use their flavor of ice cream, right? Because wrestling is it's a very, very subjective business.
Yep. So just looking at the free your narrative and control your narrative portion of your career, how do
Mm.
you think that got you ready to go on throughout your journey, throughout working with NWA and working top names like Matt Cardona and Tom Latimer and EC3, as your career would go on?
Um, it it helped me out because I was learning how to essentially kind of like work television
Mhm.
with them, and then all I'm working with there is television guys, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, like we've talked about that a lot in this interview, is one of the things that I think is like paramount for just wrestlers in general is like, man, you cannot get better unless you are working with guys that are way better than you. And that is how
Absolutely.
you learn, man. and just working with those guys and learning like how to put matches together, and how to tie up loose ends like on matches, and make things very creative. um that helped me, because it was like, when we did the control your narrative stuff, it's like we do like free the narrative 1, we do free the narrative 2, we do free the narrative 3, and then we're doing the live shows for control your narrative. And then right after that, we did the big run-in at Ring of Honor with me, Braun Strowman, EC3, and Weston Blake. And then right after that is when AEW called me. So then I was doing like a bunch of shots with AEW, and then right after that is when NWA hired me full time, right? So it was coming from that prepared me for every other thing that I was doing down the road.
Definitely. So initially, when you start the Freer narrative, you was just known as Fodder. When did the Psycho Boy nickname come into play?
So that actually came from EC3.
Okay.
We actually had these tank tops made that just said like Psycho Boy on them, and he was like, oh, like I think we should just call you Psycho Boy Fodder. And you're just, you're jacked, you're tatted up, and you're just fucking people up in the ring, you know what I mean? And I was just like, okay, cool, man, like I'm totally down with doing that, and
Absolutely.
the name just sort of stuck. And I always say, like, and I'm not comparing myself in any way, but I'm just talking about just how the names are, like, names that are like easy to remember are like Stone Cold, right? Or Psycho Boy. Like, a lot of people don't say, like when I meet people, they don't say like Psycho Boy Fodder when they come up. They just be like, oh, like that's Psycho Boy, right? So it's just like it's something that's very easy for people to pick up on and remember too.
Yep. I like it because it stands out when you look at a card. Like Fodder might be one of those things that's going to get lost in the shuffle of a card, but you throw Psycho Boy in front of it, it kind of pops the eye and
Right.
makes you curious on, okay, what's this guy going to bring to this match? Because I mean, they call him Psycho Boy. There's got to be a reason. So
Sure, sure.
it brings intrigue to the name. I think a lot.
Yeah,
So
I think one guy I had did an interview with, he said it's like a like a mysterious like type name or whatever, because like everybody's just like, oh, like this is John Wayne right here who's wrestling in the next match, you know what I mean? But when you and that's what I harken back to, like when we were talking about earlier, is like having name, like character names, you know what I mean? Like Papa Shango and like the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, things like that. Like that's stuff that like stands out to me.
because like, and I'm gonna use this analogy not to disrespect Ted DiBiase, but you look at just Ted DiBiase on a card, you're like, okay, that could just be another guy. But you put the
Right.
$1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, now you're interested. You're like, why is he
That
the
it
million
takes
dollar
it from
man?
here to here.
Exactly,
A
exactly.
100%.
You briefly spoke about doing some shots with AEW.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what was your experience like working with doing your shots with them, and were you able to learn anything from being around like the backstage environment and working the guys in the ring?
Well, like like the thing is like it's kind of weird, man. Is like once you like start like working like a lot of like TV guys, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, like you go places like AEW, and you're like, oh, like I know a ton of guys here, right? So like when I was going there, like I knew tons of guys there that worked there already. I mean, I had a lot of friends there. But I mean, like AEW was like totally cool, man. I mean, they treated me great when I was there, man. They booked me in matches, and I had a totally fine time there.
So and then right afterwards, you get kind of brought into the NWA. Was
Mhm.
you signed immediately with NWA, or did you do a couple matches with them and then they sign you? Because I know, like from talking with other guys, sometimes you do a couple matches with them, kind of like feeler matches, and then
Yeah.
maybe they bring you in. So how'd that work for you?
So Ricky Morton called me, and I had worked Ricky Morton on an indie, and he was just like, "Hey man," he was like, "I think you should be working on TV, brother." He was like, "I'm gonna get you a job at the fucking NWA." So I was just like, "All right, dude, but like, let me know." Like, I mean, people say stuff like that, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm gonna put in a word for you" or whatever, and 9 times out of 10, it never happens. But one thing I can say about Ricky Morton is Ricky Morton, anything he's ever told me he was gonna do for me, he always did it. He's a stand up dude. And he calls me. He was like, "Hey man, we're doing the pay-per-view on Saturday and Sunday in St. Louis." He was like, "And we're doing TV tapings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Nashville." He's like, "Can you be there?" I go, "Sure, man." I bought myself a plane ticket. I went up there, and the first day I just kind of met everybody, and then the second day they gave me a match. It was actually a dark match. That they ended up using on the TV program. They actually ended up using it on the NWA USA show, and I worked a guy named Joe Ocasio in that match. Good worker. We had pretty good chemistry for the first time we had ever like touched or worked together. And as soon as the match was over, I mean, they basically like verbally hired me right there on the spot.
Nice.
And then that same 3 day loop is where that's where I met my wife, and then we started doing our thing together, and it was just kind of it's just been kind of going like that ever since.
So, like, you bring up meeting Angelina Love.
Mm.
Was that just you guys came across each other backstage and just instantly clicked? How did that what did that look like?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I just saw her in the hallway, and I
Mhm.
just beelined right over to her, and I just introduced myself, and we started talking, and we kind of just never stopped talking. I mean, it was like we we kind of talked a little bit that day, and then the next day was like the last day of the tapings, and we talked a little bit that day, and then I was getting ready to work a match, and those are some long days, bro. Like, I mean, like there could be like 30 matches like filmed in one day, right? And I remember they had me like really late in the night on the tape, and like, man, I think I was wrestling at like maybe it was like 8:30 at night, and had came over and stood by the monitor, and I was like, "What you doing over here?" And she was just like, "I'm gonna watch your match." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then later on that night, like we went out, we hung out, and I mean, the rest is history, man.
So, when did you guys decide, maybe this partnership we have outside the ring and behind the curtain, let's bring it in front of the curtain and become Psycho Love?
Man, it wasn't long, man. It was like maybe like a month after we were like had started dating. So like we met on like that Tuesday, we hung out like that Wednesday, and then I mean we were just like constantly talking nonstop, and then we went on like a little trip to like Washington D.C. like maybe like a month later.
Mhm.
And I think I had brought it up there, and she was like, "Yeah," she's like, "That'd be totally cool." So I think the first time we ever did it, I was working QT Marshall at District Championship Wrestling,
Nice.
and we premiered it there, man. And we gave like NWA like a copy of the footage, and they were like they liked it, and then we were doing it on the that first NWA Power Live, and I think it was in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Nice. So, what is some of the biggest things you've been able to learn from Angelina, maybe both inside and outside of the ring, when it comes to professional wrestling?
Promos. I mean, like me and her, like we had the same like philosophy on like what kind of wrestling we like, and like me and her, we watch a ton of wrestling. But promos is definitely what I learned from her, man. Because I mean, she spent lots of time, you know, in her career doing promos.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that they're known for, is their
Definitely.
promos. So just learning things from her, like how to slow down, how to work the cameras, to do all that, and you know the the learning that I could get like on promos is like fuck. I mean, it's nonstop because we're together all the time.
Do you guys ever find yourself cutting promos on each other at home?
I mean, like sometimes, like I'm a big joker, so like I joke all the time, man. So like I'm joking on her, the kid, like I
Oh,
mean, we have a good time.
so just I don't want to skip over your time in the NWA
Mm.
at all. So, how would you best describe your time there, and is it somewhere you could see yourself coming back to?
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, we ended up leaving NWA just really just because like they had one idea of what they wanted to do creatively, and like we had another idea of what we wanted to do creatively. And I'm just a big believer in like just because you leave somewhere doesn't mean that you have to leave on bad terms.
Exactly.
It's one of those things where it's like if we're at a crossroads, then and you want to do X and I want to do Y, it's okay to like just take a step back and be like, hey man, like we're gonna go this way, no hard feelings, and maybe we can come back and revisit this at another time. You know what I mean? Maybe I can show you guys that the vision that I have for what we want to do is, you know, if we go do it and it works, then we can bring that back and you can go, oh okay, shit, that worked, right? So oh, okay, like let's do something again or whatever, right? So I mean, we got some things in the works that I think will manifest themselves in like early portion of next year, that will pop a lot of people.
Okay. Okay. I'm excited. We've talked about some of the great people you've been able to be involved with in this business, and you've wrestled countless legends, and people in on TV. People used to be on TV.
Sure.
If we had time, I'd love to dive into all of them, but there's a couple matches I'd really like to talk about and just
Sure.
get your feel for them. I'm gonna start with the Singapore Cane match you had with Tom Latimer in the NWA. What was that match like for you?
Great match, my first pay-per-view match. Latimer is an incredible wrestler. When I first got fed that match and they said like, "Hey, like this is what the match is going to be," I remember I was just thinking like, ah, man, like it's a fucking gimmick match, man. Like I don't want to do like a weapons match with this guy like the first time I work with him. Because like, dude, I'm a big fan of just like I know like gimmick matches are like really popular, but I'm a big fan of just regular singles contest matches.
Yep.
I mean, that's what I grew up on. Like, I didn't grow up on like guys like gouging themselves with barbed wire and stuff like that, man. And not to say that it wasn't out there or whatever, but I just grew up on like '96 WWF.
Yep.
So but working with him, man, I mean, the match was super fun, a really good competitive match. Dr. Tom Pritchard, he was the agent on that match, and I think one of the best things about the match is that like we didn't get to the weapons till the very end,
Definitely.
which was kind of like Doc's like creative spin on the match, because one of the things like he told us, he was like, nah man, he's like, if you go out there and start whacking each other with the sticks like the first 2 minutes, he was like, the crowd's just gonna die down, like, he was like, save the stick whacking for like the end, when you really got him up. So I mean, I was very very pleased with that match.
Yeah, you mentioned it, but like I that was my favorite part of the match too, is because a lot of times with these weapons or stipulation matches, you kind of get the payoff at the beginning or closer to the middle of the like match, and
Right.
then it dulls the ending. So like watching
Hmm.
you guys really build the anticipation for getting that heat, let's say,
Yeah.
was probably my favorite part, and it was definitely like a traditional NWA style matchup with the added stipulation of the Singapore cane,
Right.
instead of the Singapore cane being the whole focus of the match, which I think
Sure.
made it
Sure.
stand out. Up next on the list, I put your NWA title match against EC3 at Exodus Pro.
That match, I don't know that the footage is out there of that match, but that match was awesome, dude. We actually worked. So I wrestled EC3 for the NWA World Title. The day after the WrestleCade Super Show, where
Hmm.
we kind of did like a dusty finish for that match, and then that set up the street fight, which was a week later, which was at Exodus Pro. That match was super awesome, man, and I have tried my damnedest to get my hands on that match footage, so I could get like the full match in its entirety on up on my YouTube. But man, I mean, that match was one of those things where I think it was just a great example of like the chemistry that me and EC3 had. We didn't always have that good chemistry like in the ring together. Um, but I think after working with each other many times, we kind of developed some chemistry. Like I know how he works and how he moves like in the ring. And then some guys you have like instant chemistry with, like guys that I feel like I had like instant chemistry with are like Hammerstone, Elias, Heath, like guys like that. I just had instant chemistry with them.
So up next on the list, I got your steel cage match with Caleb Conley for the RWA World Title. What was that like for you? And you come out winning the championship. So yeah, explain what
Yeah.
that's like and kind of how important maybe that win was for you.
Um, so me and Caleb, long history at the RWA promotion. He was another guy I had really good chemistry with, and our chemistry just got better and better and better every time we worked. And that cage match was, I think, like kind of the culmination of like our chemistry and just that long year and a half program that we had.
Mhm.
And big shout outs to Caleb Conley. He's over at doing his thing over at the Juggalo Championship Wrestling. I think he's like the champion over there, or he's one of the champions over there. Man, good dude, great worker.
Absolutely. And then last on my list of matches, I just want to know what it was like for you taking on Joe Hendry for the TNA World Title.
Man, super fun and easy, man. He's a really easy guy to work with. Like me and him just, I mean, it didn't take very long for us to kind of like lay that match out like in the back. And I mean, he's just I liked and I enjoyed working with him. One, because like he was super over, man. So like him being so over just made my job super easy to get heat in the match.
Okay.
And just working with him, like I mean, he's a total pro, man. Like he's big on lots of crowd work, like involving the crowd in the match, and so am I. Like I'm very big on, not so much like doing 800 moves in the match, but how can I do one thing and then garner a lot of heat from the audience and keep the audience engaged in the match, because a lot of times you watch matches, man, and guys will be in there and they're doing 800 moves and the place is just dead silent, dude, and it's just like the people are just sitting there like this, and it's like they're sitting there like that because like when you do 800 moves in a row, the person that's actually sitting there watching it, their brain can't process it all at one time.
Mhm.
So like it'll be like six or seven things happen and they're kind of just sitting there and it's just like, oh, I'm supposed to react now because now everything's finally stopped. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I noticed like a lot of times, especially like I go to a lot of independent shows in Chicago, and sometimes you'll get like just an example, maybe a lucha match, and it's like boom, 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 spot, 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 and then after it's done, you're still kind like the crowd. You can tell the crowd's still trying to digest what's going on.
Yeah,
So then
100%.
there's a calm, quiet, and then maybe a little reaction instead of a big spot. Let them react. A big spot. Let them react.
Right.
Kind of formula, if
and
that
and
makes
I'm not
sense.
saying, and like there's a like to me, like I'm also big on this, is like there's a place for that kind of wrestling. There's a place for like wrestling like that, on every show. Like
Yeah.
there should be like a high flying like super spotty match, and there should be like maybe like a gimmick match, and there should be like a regular match or a
Mhm.
tag match, and that's there's a place for all different kinds of wrestling. But I think like once you get to like actually like working on television, um you really have to dial back some of the stuff, and let the crowd react, because part of working on TV and part of you know having these matches is having the audience involved. It's all about getting reaction.
Mhm. It kinda goes back to that, the different flavors of ice cream we was talking about earlier. Like, a
Sure.
card should have every flavor of ice cream for just about everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
one more question, then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
You just got to experience, Bound for Glory with your wife, getting inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame alongside Velvet Sky. Kind of what was that day like for you, and what was it like being there for your wife, Angelina Love, being inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame?
Oh, well, I mean, I definitely wouldn't have missed it. And I mean, dude, that day is it, man, dude, honestly, man, it's like every other day, man. I mean, it's just the days are just busy, man. Like, I mean, like that week was just crazy busy for us, man, because we had a booking in Hawaii. So we flew 12 hours to Hawaii. We did the show on Thursday. We had an overnight flight back on Friday. So we got back Saturday morning here in North Carolina at 9 a.m., drove home, rechanged our bags, went back to the airport, and got back on a plane at 6:30 p.m. to fly to Boston. We get to Boston, we get checked in kind of hellos to everybody. I had to do an interview that didn't happen until like midnight. And then I was back up at like 6 a.m. Me and Moose went and worked out, and then we were at the building at 11. So we're at the building all day long, because she had to do a couple of run throughs, and we were in just bullshitting with everybody and everything, and then we were back on a flight out Monday morning at 6 a.m., man, to come back home, man. So it's just busy, 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 man. But as far as her getting into the Hall of Fame, I mean, she definitely deserved it. Her and Velvet, they made their mark on professional wrestling, and obviously my wife is still active in the business because she's doing the Psycho Love gimmick with me, and I think we'll have some stuff uh, en route for people on an even bigger scale in early 2026.
I'm excited, man. Thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna always leave this open, doors open if you want to come back on for
Sure,
a
yeah.
part two. Um, I will just leave this at see you next time then.
All right, you got it, bro. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.